Hey everybody, thank you for your patience and joining this morning for our Industry Next event, Leading Through Uncertainty, and how industrials can brace themselves for 2023 and beyond. My name is Aaron Arnold, and I'm a CSM over here at Entitle. So to get started, some simple do's and don'ts. If you could scroll to the next slide. So if you have any questions that arise during the presentation, feel free to utilize the Q&A section at the bottom of your taskbar. If there's any issues that arise, feel free to utilize the chat icon at the bottom next to the Q&A button, and we will make sure to resolve those as quickly as possible. And the recording will be sent to you after the event, and not all content is shareable directly with the audiences, but we can send certain portions of the slide if requested afterwards. So from the Entitle side, we have two presenters today. First being our CEO of Entitle, Vivek Joshi. Vivek has 30 years of industrial B2B OEM sales, aftermarket and service experience. And he's really passionate about the opportunities that are available for OEMs within their install base. And our other speaker from Entitle is going to be Rob Bradenham. He is our Chief Growth Officer over here. And Rob has decades of experience working with industrials and technology, as well as being an advisor and executive with Caterpillar, Decisive, and McKinsey. And Rob is really working with our customers at Entitle to drive transformation and really help them achieve their install base objectives. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Vivek and Rob.
Mitesh is a partner with McKinsey in their Atlanta office. And is one of the leaders in the B2B services practice, where he's focused on really leveraging digital transformation, technology, and data and analytics to transform how maintenance and field service are delivered for industrial companies. So with that, Mitesh, I will hand it over to you. Thanks for participating.
Thanks a lot, Rob. And so I'm going to talk about digital transformation and link it to sort of like, the uncertain times in which we're operating. And so, as we're heading into, we're already in a time of sort of, economic uncertainty, typically companies in this type of environment, they tend to play defense, right? Put growth aspirations aside, invest less in technology. And what we find is that that's the wrong way of thinking about it, right? That typically when you're in a period of uncertainty, it's where winners and losers tend to get separated in the market. It's an opportunity to either sort of make sure that you're one of the ones which is going to emerge stronger, or potentially you may lose market share and position in the market. And we've seen this a lot historically, right? So if you look at the last downturn, the 2009 downturn, one of the things that you notice is that when you look at the resilient companies, the companies which weathered the storm better and then recovered faster, you see that these companies are the companies that typically invested in technology, in innovation, in R&D, also invested in improving their operations, their efficiency, their level of automation and digitalization. And, over a multi-year horizon, it pays a substantial dividend. And, we're seeing the same thing right now. So, if you look at the data from this year and last year, what you see is that, the top economic performers have actually recognized the need to double down in technology as a way to innovate their business model, right? They're pursuing increased competitive differentiation, and they're setting the goal that they want to redefine themselves as a digital company with a tech-centered value proposition. And the fact that the top decile, right? If you look at this page here, we sort of focus on the top decile. The top decile competitors are even, are reshaping their business strategy, making the technology investment more focused on strategic differentiation rather than just on cost, right? That's a key difference. And as a result of that, the top decile companies you see on the right-hand side, they typically spend twice as much on digital innovation as the other companies that are also investing in digital. So the point here is the leaders are differentiating themselves by spending more and spending in a different way to other companies. And that when you look at their historical performance in cycles like this, they've used it as an opportunity to separate their performance, to emerge stronger, to take away market share from the competition. And we see this also when you look at economic returns. So you see that the top decile performers in each of these segments, auto OEMs, advanced electronics, industrials, the top decile performers are ones that have invested significantly in digital. Tesla, for instance, in automotive, right? Not only have they built the car as a software platform, but you actually see that this mindset is evident throughout their business, right? So like, for instance, value-added services. They've sort of taken things like autopilot, full self-driving, performance upgrades, and turned these into value-added subscriptions. And they generate something like $150 per car per month in subscription revenue, on top of whatever they may be making on leases or actually selling the car. So that is, by far eclipsing what anybody else in the automotive industry is able to achieve in terms of services revenue, recurring monthly service revenue on top of the product. And at the same time, they've also done the same thing throughout their operations. One of the interesting statistics is that they have one admin staff for every 15 technicians versus 1 to 4 in the rest of the industry, right? So it's an indication that digitalization isn't just having an electric car, it's sort of the business model, the revenue model, the operations, and that all of these things, when you put them together, lead you to outperform your competition. In the advanced electronics space, you see some similar things. Honeywell has built an amazing business with Tritium, which we're going to talk about, and that's enabled them to have outsized growth and profitability. In industrials, you see a company like John Deere, they took a sort of a sector that had been operating with relatively traditional products, and they created digital solutions that allowed them to achieve a significant amount of growth in apps, app revenue, and services, digital services revenue, which really transformed the nature of that business and enabled them to achieve returns that eclipse anyone even close in that segment. So, there are three things that characterize what the leading companies are doing in digital transformation. One of them is that they're focusing on building new businesses, right? So, the effort around digital is not just improving the customer experience and creating a digital interface to the customer. It's really also about creating digital products, right? The Tesla example I gave is an example of that. And when I talk about Tritium and Bosch, I'll have some more examples. Another aspect is that they're transforming their business with digital and analytics. So in other words, they're moving to a model where, 100% of their decision-making is based on data. And it's much more dynamic as well. So you're applying artificial intelligence to decisions that would have been made in the sort of either a fixed logic way or would have been made but based on judgment in the past. And then the third aspect is that they're actually modernizing the infrastructure of the business. They're modernizing the core technology to enable, resource-intensive processes to be less resource-intensive and enable them to operate at a level of efficiency and leverage that their competition can't match. And so the way that manifests in the technology space is that, you see a lot, twice as much adoption of public cloud. You see that internally the companies have well-established tech and DevOps practices. That doesn't mean that necessarily they're building their own software, but what it means is that they have the ability to work with both internal technology and best-in-class solutions and rapidly integrate those in order to be able to innovate their offering to customers at a rapid pace. And then the last thing is that, they're 1.5 times more likely to have automated processes for testing and deploying new technology, which enables them to deploy, for instance, 50 use cases a year instead of 2 or 3. And then another aspect which we see that separates the top economic performers in this environment is that they have, a clear company-wide data strategy, and they're strategically differentiating on innovation. And, you see that in the sense that 70% of the top performers are using either advanced analytics or developing proprietary insights using data, and half of them are using AI as a way to accelerate decision-making across the enterprise. It could be decision-making that's commercial, like pricing or customer retention strategies. It could be AI in operations to do things like predictive maintenance. It could be AI even to do performance management and coaching. There are many applications. I'm sort of going to highlight a couple of examples of companies which are doing this exceptionally well. So one of them is Tritium. So Tritium is an amazing story of how Honeywell found an incredible growth engine embedded in their hardware. Back in the mid-2000s, one of the big obstacles to smart building was connectivity. So buildings had a wide range of systems, right? HVAC, lighting, power, elevators, security, etc. And it all comes from different suppliers. And so the infrastructure in a building wasn't designed to communicate with each other. And while you could do some custom integrations to solve that, that would be very expensive and only make sense for the very largest buildings. And so there was a company called Tritium which saw this opportunity, and they started to make these black boxes which contained drivers that enabled the communication you needed for smart building automation. And Honeywell sort of saw that the real value is not the boxes, it's the drivers. So they bought this company, and they redesigned the product as a SaaS solution called Niagara, and moved to a model where they were starting to improve the platform, not improve the hardware, which enabled them to turn this sort of low-cost black box into a high-margin subscription business, which really became ubiquitous, right? I mean, like a very high percentage of smart buildings use this solution now. And it would be easy to have just kept shipping boxes. But basically what they saw that as a digital business, you have a lot more opportunity, right? One is you can launch a more profitable business model with the SaaS business model, but also that then enables you to capture lifecycle upgrade value. It allows you to launch an app store, allows you to launch a whole bunch of subscription value-added services, which you can layer on top of that. And it also lowers the barriers to using it, right? Which enabled them to also get licensing revenue from competitors who would use this solution. And it unlocked a lot of growth. So you see on the right-hand side some of the performance, right? 35% growth rate in instances, 37% share of their global digital business. And it's also the highest margin business in their portfolio. Now, doing something like this, it's not an obvious thing to do. And there are a few things that Honeywell really got right. One of them was they built this as a separate business and brand. It's hard to build a business with your Honeywell brand and then collaborate with competitors in order to deliver cloud-based services. And so what they did was they, positioned this business as an independent business, an IoT integrator, right, separate from the component business, and also created a different culture, right, one which rewarded innovation more effectively and which was able to take risks in different ways, and also acquire talent in a different way. And that really enabled this business to take off. Another aspect of it was that they really had a conviction around the business model. And this is important, right? Because a lot of businesses look at, I want to build a digital business. SaaS might be a good way to do it, but it's hard to move away from a legacy pricing model because it's very well established, the customers understand it, there's a lot of technical complexity and process complexity in switching to a new model. And so you really need to have a degree of conviction, because it'll take you multiple years to switch over your business model. And they took that long-term view, and they were rewarded very well for it. The third aspect is, from a cultural perspective, you need to have a long horizon view. I mean, this business was built over 20 years. Yes, I mean, they started seeing returns much earlier than that. But the point is, you need to be able to get into these businesses early and anticipate the business model transition and the technology transition. And that's one of those things where, starting with a holistic view of what is going to be the evolution of your market and how will this work in the future is an important thing to do up front, and then that will guide you to where the value is. Another example of a company that did something similar is Bosch. So Bosch established a business unit called Azena, which was a software venture, which brought sort of different competitors together as part of a security platform ecosystem. So basically, they recognized that a lot of people make video cameras, themselves included, for security solutions. But the issue is that the real value is in the video analytics and value-added applications and services that leverage those cameras. And so what Bosch did is they realized we can't provide this full solution. It requires a lot of innovation. But what we can do is we can create a standardized platform and ecosystem to support it. And so they essentially established an app store and a software platform, which all cameras could tap into. And there are now 7 OEMs which run on Azena. There are more than 100 AI applications, many of them with third-party developers. Their SDK enables other companies to rapidly port their security software to this platform. And this has also enabled them to establish essentially a very quick, rapidly growing business, which is becoming sort of like the natural, the dominant provider of these types of solutions in this segment, right? And it's an example of how building a digital business related to your core business, but building it outside, enables you to win in a space where a traditional strategy might not have worked. So obviously, when you look at all of this, it's clear that there's a lot of opportunity from digital transformation. The reality is that 89% of companies, we've done some research, 89% of companies have already undertaken a digital transformation. And what we see is that most of them are not successful, right? 74% would say they're partly or not successful. 26% say they're very or completely successful. And, when you look at larger businesses, these numbers get worse, right? So, for Fortune 2000 companies, only 15 to 17% are successful. And so there are 3 reasons that companies tend to struggle when they're undertaking sort of an ambitious digital transformation. One is an incremental approach, right? So if you're innovating one part of the business model, but you're not looking at it holistically, typically that's going to create challenges. It's going to create organizational challenges because it's hard for a company to change the way it's doing business in one area, but not more holistically, right? That creates adoption issues. But also, in order to get the value, you need to be able to think more holistically. So like, for instance, if John Deere had sort of said, look, I'm just going to launch one digital product, I think it would have been, they wouldn't have got a ton of benefit out of that because it wouldn't have enabled them to improve the efficiency of their internal operations. It wouldn't have enabled them to significantly change the ROI of their product relative to a competitor's product to a farmer. And at the same time, it wouldn't have enabled them to educate their dealers in a new way of thinking about and conveying value propositions to customers, right? And so you have to do it at a level of scale that actually makes an impact on all of your stakeholders, as well as an impact to the economics of your business. And that means not just an incremental approach. The second aspect here is misaligned deployment models. What you'll find is that often you try to deploy this the way you've deployed, say, a new product in the past. And moving towards a digital business model requires a much higher degree of education. It also requires a significant change in the way you think about talent in your business, right? You have to reskill and upskill talent across the enterprise. It's not a matter of hiring 20 tech people. And so that's the second aspect. And then the third one, which I guess is what I just covered, is around upskilling. So in order to succeed, there are 6 core elements to execute a digital transformation well. One is, it helps to start with a business-led technology roadmap. So things like setting a bold strategy, knowing where the value is, right? It's not just cost, it's also innovation and growth, sort of a holistic map of the use cases and the value from a comprehensive digital transformation. Business building, where are you going to build the new businesses and how? And what is the technology and platforms, the proprietary ones, as well as the best-in-class third-party ones that you're going to integrate in order to deliver that? That top-down sort of holistic perspective on the roadmap and the vision is the critical starting point. And if you don't do that, what you might find is you can still get there, but you'll end up spending more, and you may end up getting leapfrogged if you miss something important. The second aspect is talent, right? So the top layer is around the vision, the middle layer you'll find is around the capabilities, and then the bottom layer is about the adoption. The middle layer, talent, is another key thing. And part of this is it's important that the leadership suite of the company is sort of tech savvy across all of the functions, but also that you're effective at integrating technology talent and upskilling the legacy talent in the business, right? It's important that this shift in talent is holistic. It's not just sort of a silo. Another aspect is agile delivery. One of the things that we find is too many companies try to do this in a sort of way that's led by the CTO or CIO, and it's not driven by the business. And what we've found is that model typically doesn't work. That these innovations, the sort of disruption, needs to come from within the business. And what you need to do is you need an agile model where you're effectively integrating the technology talent with the business ownership in order to drive this innovation. When you have that partnership, it's far more effective, and you're able to operate at a pace that enables you to make a difference. The fourth aspect is around technology and tooling, right? And this is where we're strong believers in. You need to not sort of do complex projects innovating your legacy infrastructure, but you need to be able to move much faster, use off-the-shelf solutions where possible, do a cloud-based architecture, and then do simple innovation for the solutions that don't exist internally. And then finally, data management, right? Data management capabilities are something that we see sort of neglected a lot, and it becomes really important, not just because of the volume of data that you'll find that you're generating in a digital world, but also that things like the robustness of your data systems, the reliability, the data security. These things become much more important, and they become business critical. And failing on this can actually be catastrophic when you're trying to move fast on a digital strategy. And then underlying all of this is sort of the adoption and operating model change. There's sort of a high risk that you may have the right investments and the right strategy, but you're not able to deploy it effectively across your organization. And so building the capability, inside each function, building clear understanding of what it is that you're trying to accomplish, so people across different functions and levels of the organization are talking the same language, and then being able to scale it in an effective way through assetization and data model automation and effective risk management practices and capability building is another key piece of how you do this. So with that, I'd like to open up any questions that you have.
Hey, Mitesh, thank you for that presentation. A lot of great info in there. I think we have time for one question. So for a company that is early in the digital transformation journey, what are examples of projects that you have seen be successful and really generate some wins that can build confidence to take on some bigger challenges?
Right. Yes. So I think, first of all, I think early in the digital transformation, it is important to sort of have this holistic vision and roadmap, right? What is the digital future going to be? And the reason that's important is because what you'll find is when you go through that exercise, you'll be able to paint a picture of, what is the really full value potential? Like we can triple the EBIT of the business, and this is how much revenue potential it unlocks with new businesses. This is, what it means from an operational perspective and a margin expansion perspective. And then once you have that, what you'll find is that you'll end up with different horizons of opportunities, right? So you'll find that there are some things which you can implement and execute in 3 months, and they'll already start creating, cash flow and ROI. And then there are going to be some which are longer term investments. Some of the things that we find are quick near-term value tend to be a lot of the operational efficiency things, right? So things like automating administrative processes in a company to streamline them and reduce the labor intensity. Things like automating quoting, for instance, right? Automating quoting both is labor efficient, and it also typically will unlock revenue growth because, what you'll find is that there's some portion of opportunities that you're leaving on the table because you're not quoting fast enough, and therefore you lose the business, right? So, those types of opportunities are one area. Another type of area is sort of productivity opportunities. So things like, for instance, is there technical work that you could automate? Are you able to reduce sort of the number of maintenance events by doing remote troubleshooting and maintenance, remote analytics? Those are also sort of good near-term opportunities. Things like also automating things like asset management and inventory management. And then on the commercial side, we find that actually deploying technology relating to pricing is often a very good near-term lever because, right now pricing is an area where we're seeing a lot of differentiation between the high performers and the lower performers in the market. And AI-based pricing is something that you can actually, if you've got the right data, you can implement it pretty quickly and start generating value from that fairly quickly.
Excellent. I think, Aaron, that might be the only question you can take because down to 1:15 Central, 2:15 East Coast time. Mitesh, really thank you very much for that. That was actually fantastic content, fantastic insights for people to take away. And, I've been exchanging messages with my colleagues on the side that consistently the content we saw from everybody was just amazing. The kinds of messages we got, the kinds of really insights we got from everybody in terms of being able to kind of put things together was just absolutely fantastic. So thanks a lot for that again, all of you.